today we want to have a conversation. Just 2 days ago, we had a finance minister, Dr. Adam, making an announcement that we have the debt restructuring now approved with our external creditors, bilateral creditors, so to speak. And then that also, he said, is a period of joy and delight for Ghana. Now, what we are here to do is to have a discussion with the current state of the economy, what has been announced by the finance minister, routed through sub-Saharan Africa, Kenya, the current protests, because they are also protesting over the same issues. We'll take you through a number of lineup of reactions, because even our members of parliament have been caught in this as well. And so we'll be looking at that. Let me just first introduce our regulars who are in the studio. I have a former chair for the PNC, Bernard Mona, also with Arise Ghana. Good morning to you.
Morning, boss.
And then also Malik Basintale is a regular. He doesn't need any introduction. Good morning to Malik Basintale.
Good morning, Roland. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, helping us to make meaning of what the numbers and where we are currently, what the concerns are by way of the young people in Kenya, and then how we can relate that to this debt restructuring we've announced, 8 billion in excess. The finance minister says that it means that we're going to use that to develop our country before we start paying. Professor John Gachi is a regular on the channel, helps us do a lot of discussion when it comes to the subject of economics, the finance sector as well. He is currently the dean of the revered University of Cape Coast Business School. Good morning to you, Professor John Gachi.
Good morning.
Okay. Now let's take you through what has been achieved by the government of Ghana, because the agreement in principle with Eurobond holders is indicating that the proposed terms is going to have a 37% haircut. So the haircut simply means that it's a forfeiture. 37% of what we owe them, they are willing to write it off. So we're not going to pay it. Now, it's been spread over a period till 2037. So 6% interest as it is. And so it means that for the proposed terms, we're going to have from 2036 and 2037 for those maturity to be achieved. And from 2024, that'll be from this year to 2028, at least a 5% interest will be paid by the government of Ghana based on the bonds. Expected cash flows also will be with the Eurobond holders, 4.4 billion. Now, the overall savings from the current restructuring, we're told, is $8 billion. And this is where we're told that this is a windfall. Whether this is a windfall, we'll have the expert tell us what it means and critically what we need to make out of this. Now, the shadow payment for the Eurobond subsequently are also on the screens. And subsequently, when you make meaning of this, it would also mean that we need to relate it to all that is going on. So the external debt restructuring is also there. So we have 8 billion, that's the Eurobond holder, official creditors in excess of 2, and the debt component that has been restructured, we have them. So we have 13.1 billion restructured. And then for bilateral creditors, we have 5.4 billion. All right. Now, Professor John Gachi, you relate that to all that is going on in Kenya. And, of course, they are not restructuring their debt. They tend to go to the Bretton Woods institutions very often as well. Now, the consensus is that we have a certain windfall, and so we should jubilate. What's your interpretation of that? Do we have 8 billion to spread over some nice investment and projects in country? And so the rescheduling is a good thing, so to speak, that we should all be delighted about.
Well, please, can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Well, the idea about this debt rescheduling, debt exchange program is just an announcement to the creditors that you are in a default state, you cannot pay. Therefore, they should help you to elongate the payment period and also sacrifice some interest that you should have been earning. So that is all about the debt rescheduling or debt exchange program. Over 2 years now, we have not been paying, largely because we do not have the money. So we have entered into agreement with the creditors, and the creditors are saying that you should have been paying me some 8 to 10 billion. That I will not take. So you shouldn't recognize that in your books. So that is clean. However, you will continue to pay my new debt. You will pay interest, you will pay the principal at maturity. That does not mean that you have any fund elsewhere or somewhere amounting to 8 billion for which you are going to use to do development, especially infrastructure, as stated by the Minister of Finance. All that means, the savings that the agreement is talking about, is that is what you should have paid, but you are not going to pay it. But in any case, 2 years ago, you have not been paying. So you have not accumulated any money somewhere, assuming that you have set up a sinking fund, which you have been putting that 8 billion in. And today, they have told you that we are not going to collect the 8 billion from you. Then, in reality, that 8 billion is in a certain account that you will use for development. But that is not the situation. So we cannot extend the benefit of the 8 billion beyond the book accounting or the book record that we are going to do in our debt, records. That is all there is about it. Of course, if you are not going to pay 8 billion, it reduces your debt burden. It gives you space to plan, to prepare to pay the debt, the new debt. That is all there is to this debt exchange program. It has no money anywhere that is given to the government of Ghana for development. So all that statement that we have 8 billion or 10 billion dollars, and we are now going to do store projects which have not been continued for some time. We are now going to resume them. It does not meet reality.
All right. How do we relate that to the concerns that have been raised in terms of what is being exhibited in Kenya by the young people over that finance bill, which apparently is going to increase the tax burden of the Kenyan people or the Kenyan taxpayer in relation to what we are also having here, the various tax handles currently, and the dissatisfaction thereof by way of the economy?
Well, the Kenyan problem didn't start yesterday. It started with the management of the economy, especially how they procure their debt from China and from other Western countries. That has actually accumulated over a period of time. In fact, late last year, we heard about the debt situation of Kenya. As a result of that, the president was consulting with many institutions to see how the debt burden is reduced. And that definitely reflected on the currency somehow before the currency resumed good performance. And again, all these things actually reflected on inflation, reflected on cost of living of people, reflected on job situation for young people, to the extent that the opportunity that young people were expecting, they were not getting such opportunities. And they have asked for help from the government several times. It seems they were not met, or they were not satisfied with the delivery on their needs. And as a result of that, we saw what happened yesterday. But before we saw what happened yesterday, I think the government wanted to impose certain taxes. Of course, taxes have been imposed, and new ones are coming. So it's as though they are reading with taxes here and there. And the young men say that, no, enough is enough. We are not getting what we are getting. An economy should be managed for the people of the country. An economy is managed, it's not delivering jobs, it's not delivering hope, it's not delivering new opportunities for them. And then they were saddled with a payment of taxes here and there. And that is what brought about the situation. And it seems they didn't pay particular attention to listen, to engage the young people of Kenya. Of course, I do know that they were complaining about identifying leaders to engage so that they can resolve the problem. They were not able to identify leaders. However, the point is that the young people of Kenya are not satisfied. They can't see what their life will be in the next few years, and they think that they are not part of the economy of Kenya, and therefore something should happen.
Well, we'll come back and talk because our MPs are stranded there, so we'll talk about that. But Malik, so far, the finance minister says that we should be happy. We have debt restructuring that has been achieved. At least we have 8 billion that we can use. That is, if we're able to do the accruals by the time that we need to, and it would also ensure that it inures positively to development.
First of all, are we happy that we are the IMF? That's the first question. Are we happy? If we aren't happy that we are the IMF, why must we be happy with anything that's got to do with the IMF? In the first place, he, the finance minister, today, together with all other stalwarts in his party, told us they were never going to step at the doorsteps of the IMF. Today we are there, and you are telling us to feel excited. Excited about what? Is he happy that pensioner bondholders have not been paid? Is he happy? I listened to him when he was speaking with so much joy and so much passion. I wonder whether he goes through the books or whether he goes through the records.
Oh, he's a finance minister. He certainly does.
Of people who lose their lives on a daily basis. I wonder whether he asks or he checks at the births and deaths to see records of pensioner bondholders who are derailing, whose lives are being lost on a daily basis, all because they cannot afford petty medicines. Not because they were irresponsible men, but because their monies have been consumed by an irresponsible government, of which he, the finance minister today, is finance minister of. These are questions he should concern himself with. When I saw 8 billion being saved, when he said that, all I asked myself was, where from that 8 billion? And so I'm happy that Professor Gache is clarifying a lot of the issues. I wouldn't have said anything better than what Prof has said. Where is that 8 billion coming from? It's not as if 8 billion is lying somewhere. You have consumed the people's monies. Monies they lended to your government in the name of bonds. You have consumed it, you are not paying the interest, and you are not willing to pay the principal. All you are willing to do is spread it over a long period in time till 2037.
Yes, up to 2037.
Absolutely. And you think people should be happy about this? Or because you went about begging the parish club to beg your creditors forgive you of monies you cannot pay because you have borrowed yourself into a debt default and a debt distressed situation. Then you tell us to be happy. What are we supposed to be happy about? Okay, the finance minister should show us the 8 billion or is it 8 million, whatever. He should show us the 8 billion. We want to see $8 billion. If you've saved 8 billion, point to the fund that has 8 billion today. All the funds President Mahama brought, from the sinking fund, the GET fund, the stabilization fund, all precious funds, Exim Bank and all those other funds have been depleted. ESLA was brought on board. Not a kobo is in the ESLA fund. All other funds, I've named them. They should tell me which fund has $8 billion lying in it. Our foreign reserves, our international reserves. Just last week, they are declared that, in fact, we are derailing at about a 2-week, import cover. if we should sink a little further, Ghana will be entirely bankrupt. Our Bank of Ghana, that is supposed to be keeping these monies, has been declaring losses and losses and losses, and today the Bank of Ghana is bankrupt.
But we're told that's for good reason.
I don't see...
It's because of the 2022-2023 period where we had those structural problems.
I don't see any explanation to where 8 billion is going to come from, because there is no 8 billion. If there were ever an 8 billion in this economy, Mr. Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have successfully and succeeded in depleting, consuming the monies, and not a penny is left. To link it to the Kenyan situation, Roland, you see, I'm a young man. I believe that my journey ahead must be highly transparent, so I can find hope in it, I can find inspiration in it. In the next 5 years, I should know where my future is taking me to. And any young man who is watching us today will aspire to be great in the coming days and will want to see hope ahead of his journey. William Ruto, I will express huge disappointment.
Why so?
In what I'm seeing today.
He came in with a lot of...
When he was campaigning in 2022, he said he was a driver's mate. He told the people of Kenya that he was only a mate to Kenyatta, and he had no control over the system. And upon assumption of office, he was going to cancel all the taxes that were imposed on the people of Kenya. Roland,
where did you hear him use the phrases?
I will send the stories to you. He said he was a mate. He said he's not a madman. He said he has the economy at heart. He said he was going to reduce taxes. Yeah. I'll send you all these scripts.
And then he also said he was different than Kenyatta.
Absolutely.
He said that, but he never said he was a driver's mate.
I will send you all the stories. He said he went about saying a whole lot of things. Today, you are in power, and all the taxes that have been imposed on the people of Kenya are being doubled and some are being tripled. As young people, where do you expect them to find hope for their future from? You see, when you look at Ruto, you see the vice president we have today in all what is happening in Kenya today.
Oh, what do you mean by
that? And you see, I feel sad.
How is that relatable?
I feel sad that the economic situation in Kenya is still 10 times better than that of Ghana. And I'll take you to the figures. The unemployment rate in Kenya today is around 8%. Ghana, we are doing 14% under Bawumia, yet we are quiet. Inflation in Kenya, as it stands now, is 6.3%. Ghana, we are doing almost 30%. At a point, we were doing 54.1% in this country, yet we are quiet. Manufacturing sector, Ghana currently is growing at negative 2.2%. But Kenya is growing at 2.6%. Construction sector, Kenya is doing 3.1%. Ghana is doing negative 1.1%. In fact, worst of it all is the education sector. Kenya is doing 4.6%. Ghana is doing negative 4.5%. And you see, Roland, if you compare these figures to the figures we have in this country, and yet we have a vice president who still has the moral effrontery to go before people, crack jokes, play, ask people to give him a home use steer, turn the steer, and ask us to make him a driver.
But that's just a literal expression he tries to relate to in order to convince voters to vote for him.
You see, I feel we have been charitable enough. The Ghanaian people have been so patient, because if Kenya has all these figures I have quoted, 10 times better than the economy Bawumia pretends over, and yet they have poured out to the streets to demonstrate and protest harshly against economic, derailment, then we as a people of this country have been so calm and have been so tolerant that we have a vice president that has superintended over the worst economic fortunes in this country, yet still has the effrontery to go about speaking to the Ghanaian people. Look, Roland,
you have 2 minutes.
We must
wrap up for me.
Come to a point in time where African leaders will stop taking us for granted. I say this because aside competence, you need to be morally upright, you need to be trustworthy, and above all, you need to have the fear of God in your heart. Look, in 2016, Dr. Bawumia, the kind of things he told us in this country, the kind of blab, the kind of empty rhetoric, the kind of fake promises and warped analysis he told us in this country. He will arrest the dollar had been arrested, the keys to the IGP, he will give one district, one factory, he will do that. Went around blabbing in this country.
But one district,
Only
one factory
for
was set up.
him,
We have a number.
Casapreco, Motoken, Everpure, A1 bread, including the bread at Nsawam. Is that one district, one factory? You, after all these blabs, you get the nod. And today, under your watch, it is one day, one lie. Lie to the people of this country. In fact, even swords that were cut under his administration went about lying through his teeth. And today, when we want to hold you to accountability, first of all, you come and tell us you are only a mate and you are not a driver. Roland, we must rise up as a people. Look, what is happening in Kenya, I don't support harsh protests. But it is sad that just as the youth of this country cannot find a way into their future, in Kenya, we just have an unemployment rate of 8%. In Ghana, over 1.8 million, you today watching me on these your screens, are still unemployed. And all we do is sometimes to even give a listening ear to Baumia, who deceived us, who lied and led us into the stage.
Is a candidate of the ruling party, and so he is entitled to debate and then also sell his message. And that is what he's doing.
And that is what campaigns are about. I have said on this platform that, look, campaigns are about either exhibiting your manifesto or listening to the cries of the people. There is no campaign in the history of this country that goes around with a home use steer, asking people to hold your waist and you drive them to the promised land.
You look at what the utterances have been, and indeed the announcement from the finance minister, and then you just suppose that with all the issues about the standard of living conditions. Indeed, the social media is replete with how we have high cost of food, etc. And then these concerns, again, are being repeated in Kenya by the young people. What will be your key observations?
Greetings to you and to my brother, Malik Basintale, and to your many watchers and viewers globally. I listened to the Minister for Finance. I think he was in the United Kingdom. And I was amazed, extremely amazed at his level of enthusiasm, particularly when he was pontificating about gross domestic product growth and claiming that they have grown the economy and that the economy could not have been that buoyant and that we have defied the work of the International Monetary Fund. We have also beaten the expectations of rating agencies and that Ghana was doing well contrary to their predictions. And he promised even further that our economy was going to grow. I felt so wheezy that we've not learned sufficient lessons. And I know Dr. Amin Anta from our school days. As our NUC's president, he inspired most of us. I've known about his forthrightness. And I didn't think that he doesn't understand what he's saying, because one of the things as economic students we have always argued is the significance of gross domestic product and its growth measured against the development of our nation. Because when you're talking about gross domestic product and the growth, you also want to think about economic development. But you see that whilst our gross domestic product is growing, to wit, the wealth of our nation is increasing. Our development is at the opposite end. Anytime we have to do any development, whilst our economy, our wealth is increasing, we have to borrow in order that we can carry out or execute developments. So where is that wealth you claim we are growing or we are increasing? So I don't know why we decide to deceive ourselves by always telling people that, look, our economy is growing. Roland, I take it that you run a business and you come and tell us that your business is doing well, is growing. But anytime your business, you claim your business is growing, to do the least expenditure, you have to go and borrow. Sometimes you borrow to even come and pay salaries of workers. So you are increasing debts and you are claiming that your economy is growing. There is something fundamentally wrong with our thinking. You don't have an economy, in effect. You are virtually a pariah state, to say. So what are you talking about? Which economy is growing? And I have cited this example.
Which is?
That if you go to the telecom industry, assuming that we have about 20 million Ghanaians who are active subscribers, and that on average, voice and data combined, we use 10 Ghana cedis a day. That means that daily we generate 200 million Ghana cedis for the telecos. So when we finish that generation, in a year, that will be 200 million times 365 days. Do you know how much money the telecos collect from us?
What's the point with this?
How much of that money is with you? How much of that money?
At the end of the financial year.
At the end of the financial year. So MTN will just carry a bag and take their share of money.
Let's be mindful of the names.
Why? They are the providers in the system. Telecel will take their bag and go. Glo will take their bag and their share of money and go. At the end of the day, it is only taxes that they declare. That is if they are not even doing smart accounting. If they do smart accounting, at the end of the day, you will realize that there will be an insignificant component of taxes that you have to get. But the telecos would have grown by a certain magnitude. So you factor that as economic growth.
And we find same in the oil sector as well.
Every
Mining.
sector. I just cited the telecos. You go to the extractive sector, bo. So when you have our ministers coming to use gross domestic product as an indicator of how well our economy is doing, Master, we are doomed. We are completely doomed because this is the nomenclature that the Western and Bretton Woods institutions want you to use because it serves their interests. They come here through bilateral and multilateral institutions, set up companies. They have deceived you. You have sold almost everything through third parties to them. You own nothing. Please, stop deceiving yourselves and thinking that you are deceiving the people of Ghana. We know that the nexus between GDP and economic development is at variance. And that is how come that when you tell us that the economy is growing, unemployment is increasing. How is that growth?
You mean the correlation?
Yes. When you tell us that economy is growing, you realize that you are not able to pay contractors. You are not able to pay nursing trainees. You are not able to pay teacher trainees. You are not able to pay your own created NAPCO. How is that economy? How is that
Actually,
economy?
NAPCO, we spoke to them.
How is that economy growing?
65,000 people who are owed.
Yeah. So how is the economy growing? So please, stop deceiving yourself because you are not deceiving the people of Ghana.
The announcement
Now,
he made was that we have 8 billion. And so
which 8 billion? In which coffers? What they are saying is that you owe us. And the way we have looked at things, you are not capable of paying, servicing these debts. So we are willing to write off 8 billion. Does that mean that you have the money? It's actually money you were supposed to pay, but you don't have the cash.
If you had the money, you would have paid.
You don't have it. It is your level of indebtedness. In fact, it indicates the level of uselessness of the state of your economy. That now people see that you are incapable of meeting your obligations to them. You think that it's not a dent for somebody to come and tell you that, oh, I know you are too poor, therefore don't pay your debt. What prestige and honor is in that? What honor is in that? That you owe. You are in a state that you are incapable of paying. And who landed us into this? And since when did the Minister for Finance...
Does COVID Russia and Ukraine as a...
Since when did the Minister of Finance get to know that IMF is a panacea to the problems of our country?
How do you mean?
Is it not the same people and brackets that went to the Tamale Alieu Mahama Stadium and indicated that IMF will not go today, will not go tomorrow. And that e-levy was the panacea, was the Acobam.
E-levy was a what?
Acobam. You know Acobam?
The ointment?
The ointment. If your head is aching, Acobam. If your stomach is aching, Acobam. If your joint, Acobam. Acobam is the solution to all the ills of our nation. Were they not the people who told us that e-levy was going to solve our road infrastructural difficulties, was going to solve our residential facility difficulties, was going to solve our educational difficulties, was going to fix our agriculture? Which sector was e-levy not going to solve? Today, e-levy is in place.
You are
still at the IMF. Decency and prudence will tell you that the e-levy has failed. Scrap it.
Professor Gachi, now what lies ahead for us? Well, so now that we've bought time, because while we restructure, in literal terms, what we've done is we've bought time. And if you look at what the variable or the indicators are, the cedi is not doing too well with the US dollar as well as the major international currencies as well. And then our commodities, especially our main one, apart from gold, cocoa hasn't also been doing too well in terms of what we are cultivating. What is there for us by way of our ability to be able to strengthen ourselves before ultimately we start servicing our debts? Okay. Okay, so Professor Gachi. Okay, Professor Gachi.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm asking the question, what are the good pointers for us, the hope for us, that now to the time that we start doing the actual servicing, based on the restructuring we've undertaken with our Eurobond or bilateral partners, we are in a good stead to be able to do those recoveries amid some of our commodities not doing too well. Of course, price of cocoa may be good on the world market. We're not collecting enough or cultivating enough locally. And then also we have a weakening cedi, and that should be a headache for us. So when we just suppose those two scenarios, where lies the hope for us?
Well, I will only say it's not clearly articulated because when you take the cocoa sector, for example, which is supposed to be providing some foreign exchange for the country, the cocoa sector is at risk because if we are not careful, our cocoa may not be accepted in the international market because of the environment within which we produce our cocoa. Galamsey activities has actually destroyed cocoa farms and then released chemicals into the soil that are taken by the cocoa seedlings and grow up with. And that is a major risk for us. Either you are using WTO rule or country-specific rules, you will need to meet specifications of WTO in terms of the things that you are exporting. And then you also need to meet the specification of the countries regarding the things you are exporting. And that beyond that, you also need to meet other standards like human rights standards. How are you producing in your cocoa producing areas? Of course, there have been studies sponsored by some of the buyers, and that shows that it's not good for us. So the cocoa sector is at risk, and we need to do everything possible to redeem it for the betterment of the country. And then again, the exchange rate situation is not going. Whatever, whether you are engaged in IMF, World Bank or not,
Prof, I would want you to look into your camera so that, because your eyesight seem to be gazing somewhere. Please go ahead. You were on the currency.
Yes, whether you are engaged with IMF, World Bank or whatever, the currency problem, it will be reduced to demand and supply. And the demand and supply will be disaggregated into what you are producing, what you are consuming. Our statistical service has been very, very helpful to us to disaggregate the data to, at a point, they are able to categorized about 20 crops that are leading food inflation. At the point in time, it is 10. What are we doing to make sure that we target those crops to produce in Ghana when it's on record that we have comparative advantage in producing them? There is nothing showing in that direction. So it means that we are only giving up everything. You realize that during COVID time, we were blaming Russia, Ukraine, but Ukraine businessmen came to Ghana to invest. I don't know whether you noticed that. Then recently, the president is engaging Ukraine president about,
agri-exports.
Agri-export, etc. So we have a basic problem because we are a country that gradually become uncompetitive. Even when we try to produce the things, they are very expensive, and as compared to the imported one. So we need to make the economy competitive, and these are the things that will have some effect on the currency. Bank of Ghana alone cannot manage the currency. We need to have a coordinated approach where the productive sector is involved in targeting food security and management of currency. That is how the approach should be.
Right.
But we have not seen anything in that direction.
Just about 2 days ago, I had to retweet, or it was actually yesterday, I had to retweet a post from a severe critic of our economy and its management, Professor Steve Hanks, and he's with the Johns Hopkins University. He's one of the leading economists there. He's been watching a number of the economies and then how currencies have been faring. He has what he calls a Hanks currency watch list. He places us on the list just below the Sudanese pound, the South Sudanese pound, the Zimbabwean currency as well, Cuba and Argentina. We know what's happening in Argentina as well. They constantly will have to be going to the IMF and the Bretton Woods institution, and then in Burma or Myanmar, so to speak. And then the CD comes in as some of the worst performing currencies since January. You look at that and the effect on prices on goods and services locally. Are you concerned? How do we recover?
Well, whether the currency is rated number one or the last, what we need to appreciate about currency is that when it does depreciate, it's a cost to the economy, it's a cost to businesses, it's a cost to households, and it influences prices. And that is why we should take every effort or every policy available to mitigate the depreciation of the currency, especially as we are not export-led economy to be benefiting from depreciation. So the point is that it exacerbates the cost structure of businesses, it increases expenditure across board for everybody, and it has a direct impact of cost of living situation in the country. And if you are managing an economy, those are the things that should be concerned to you, to make sure that you correct those things and make the people happy and make the economic environment conducive.
Okay. Now, Malik, at the end of the day, the question then will be, of course, you may be in the opposition party, but we are in this together. And as a result of that, the economy rebounding is good for everybody else, irrespective of who is managing it or not. And that should be an objective for everybody. Is that not it?
Yeah, but is the economy rebounding under Dr. Baumia? That's the question. When is the economy rebounding? They told us we're out of the woods in 2021 or so. They told us we had veered the corner. You cut the corner, you remember? They told us a Jumapa budget. They told us a Mpuntuo budget. Gave us so many justifications as to why there were going to be better days ahead for us. We have deteriorated further. They told us they were going to cut down on taxes. 14 new taxes have been imposed on us. VAT has been made a flat rate. 25% increase in import tax, 2% increase in special import levy, 1% COVID-19 tax. E-levy has come on board 1.75%, 25% on gift tax, 10% withholding tax on assets and liabilities. 40 new taxes, 200% increase in the
But
boss
Malik,
margin.
we need this tax. We need to collect the revenue.
Yeah, but Baumia knew that in 2016. Yet he told us he was going to move us from taxation to production. Are you in any way justifying for Baumia today? 40 new taxes. What is happening in Kenya? It's just an increment in about 4 or 5 taxes. Paltry taxes, petty taxes. And yet the people have poured onto the streets to agitate. 40 new taxes have been imposed on us by Dr. Baumia. And you tell me that we are going to rebound. How are we going to rebound? Where's the hope going to come from? This year, 2024, tell me what's going to happen. I've seen a lot of them speculating. I saw them attempting to deceive people into rushing and changing their dollars and all of that. You are not supposed to be discussing dollar with us. You are supposed to be discussing dollar with your colleague ministers who have stocked $1 million plus under their beds. And when 1 million is stolen, they still will not even realize that 1 million has been stolen. Those are the people you are supposed to be talking to. Cecilia Dapa and the likes are supposed to change their dollars, not us. And so I don't see any hope because you see, on this platform, we were supposed to have a government rep. So we discussed policy. You've asked me a question about the economy rebounding because the government is not even here to explain to the Ghanaian people. And I'm supposed to do that. I'm doing so because you find me a serious alternative to governance in this country. And that's why you asked me that question. And I would answer you because we have the solution to the problems of this country. The current government has lost hope. Dr. Baumia meets NAPCO unemployed and NAPCO trainees, unpaid NAPCO trainees. He meets unpaid contractors, and all he stands there shouting is Moma Mistiano. I would give you the solution. The only way we'll rebound is if, first of all, we promote an export-led economy. If, second, we find jobs, sustainable jobs for the youth of this country. And third, if we ensure that our economy works at a full force. And that rebound can only happen under President Mahama, who is bringing on board a 24-hour economy. That rebound can only happen under President Mahama, who is going to set up mining companies in mining areas, who is going to set up cocoa industries, refineries in cocoa growing areas, who is going to set up a board for cashew. If we want to rebound
Malik,
our economy,
we've had
we have to
some initiatives also,
locally.
the one district, one factory, and some of those initiatives, there's one constituency, $1 million, one village, one dam.
I started buying beef Foster since I was 2 years on this earth. Beef Foster has been added onto one district, one factory. How many more people has it employed? Casapreco. People were drinking Casapreco before I was born. They've added it onto one district, one factory. How many people did they employ? Everpure has been added onto one district, one factory. Tell me how many sachets of water has been brought on board. So my hometown, Damango, Boko, Binduri, and the likes were promised egg factories, textile factories, garri factories. Go and ask them whether they have given us a single of those factories. In other words, imports, if you want to confirm what I'm telling you today on this platform, import of tomato into this country was about 3 billion under MPP. Import of onion was 2.5 billion. Import of sugar was 4 billion. Import of rice was 4.5 billion. Go to the budget. And so, what are we producing in this country? So, I'm telling you that the current government has run out of ideas. All they seek to do these days is churn out propaganda. And they are running away from their own track record. And by so doing, Richard Ahiagba and his cohorts will not appear on New Day to explain policy.
Please,
because they'll be sleeping and cannot explain what they are supposed to be explaining to the Ghanaian people.
Those individuals are not here, you don't mention their names.
Yes, I'm here. I would come here in the morning. I would give policy to the Ghanaian people because we are a serious political party. We are a serious alternative. And if we are dealing with unserious governments in power, then we have to show them the way on the 7th of December 2024. And so, Roland, we cannot be out of the woods. We cannot be out of the bounds until President Mahama becomes president and until we commence a 24-hour economy in this country.
Bernard Mona, there are critical issues about, and I'll pose the same question. We all need to come on board, is that not it? And so, at the end of the day, when revenue is being raised, it also goes to ultimately feed into what we're able to collect and then be able to pay out eventually. And subsequently also get to invest to improve the well-being of the ordinary Ghanaian. we all need that sense of unity of purpose. And that's what the government is calling for.
There cannot be doubt that we are in the mess together, whether we created it or not, and whether we participated in the creation or not. What is important is that cost of living is on the ascendancy. Many families are unable, as I speak to you this morning, to take their wards to school because of increased transport fares. Many have not been able to iron their clothes because there is increase in electricity bill. Many have not been able to access water. Apart from the scarcity of the water, the cost of water has reached roof level. Many are those that are struggling to find jobs, and many have actually become grandparents without having a job because people have completed school. They have reached 40, 45 years, and they have not had a permanent job in their life. And at 46 or so years, they are told that Senate contributions will not be acceptable because you need a minimum of about 20 years or more to do that contribution. So when we all live in this economy, it is prudent that we have to devise ways together so that we can pick up the pieces. I'm excited that there are calls for all hands to be on deck for this. And I remember that at a certain point, there was what we call the Senchi consensus, which rallied all of us that let's come and think together because our economy was in dire straits. President Akufo-Addo's aide, and now a senior government advisor, was penciled to be one of the speakers at the forum, and he was a former Minister of Finance. Just getting to the last minutes of the event, wrote to say that the party has said that he should not participate, and therefore he will not come and share his views on how Ghana will overcome the economic crisis that we're facing. Today, our government is calling on us to all bring ideas, but have they ever listened to our ideas? Recall at the time that they were bringing e-levy. We said that that was not the only way to overcome the challenges facing us. And we proposed that, for instance, if you go to TikTok, do you know how much money TikTok make on the people of Ghana? How much taxes do they pay to the people of Ghana? If you go to Facebook, businesses are done on Facebook. These days, if you want to buy anything and you don't know where to locate it, you just go and check on Facebook. They will indicate where the item is, the price of it, and normally it's delivered before you pay. So sure. Facebook is doing a lot of trading. How much is the government of Ghana earning from such transactions? So we said to them that, look, instead of taxing people's working capital, instead of taxing people so as to make it impossible for the poor to even get their remittances through Momo, let's look at the option of taxing these as what I call social media handles. So if you tax Facebook, Facebook will find a way to spread it. It's not you. If you tax TikTok, if you tax X, if you tax these things, we propose these ideas. Did they listen to us? They never listened to that. They were eager because they saw some humongous sums of money resident in people's Momo account, that they were eager and desperate to go and take part of our money. We pointed out the difficulties in that. Did they listen? So today, if they are calling for ideas, I am willing, and I'm sure my party is willing, that let's sit down at a round table, let's contribute ideas that will be able to take us out of this mess, because you have proved incapable of handling the situation, and we cannot allow the situation to deteriorate beyond this. And I think that, look, we are a solution-providing political party. We are willing, we are ready to help them so that we can put up ideas that will be able to take us out of this economic quagmire. Take another look at this. We keep selling state assets, right? We keep selling state assets. In fact, we send people to deliberately go and run down these state institutions so as to serve as fodder for us to buy them. How is that going to be the solution to the problems that we are confronted? Some state institutions that nobody thought that would run well, go to the Ghana Museums and Monument Boards and go and see the transformation because you put a more capable, a more competent person there. Go to the Ghana Publishing Company and go and see how my friend David Asante has been able to transform a once collapsing institution into a better managed institution. So therefore, what it means is that if you decide not to fill square pegs in round holes, you will get the results that you want with most of the state institutions. Unfortunately, deliberately, you send people to Tema Oil Refinery, they run down the institution, they turn around to come and join with you. You form a company, you want to buy the institution that you claim that is not profitable. That is not the way to manage the affairs. Finally, let me talk about Kenya. It's despicable to see President Ruto and his government treat citizens to tear gas in the morning, tear gas in the afternoon, and tear gas in the evening. The people of Kenya requires food in the morning, food in the afternoon, and food in the evening, and not tear gas. This kind of barbaric leadership should not be countenanced by any. And if Africa Union is in existence and have any authority to speak, this is the time to
Do you think that it requires the intervention of the African Union? They should speak
about the despicable happenings in Kenya. Look, you cannot.
Yesterday in his speech, President Ruto did say that they will resist as a government any action that could destabilize the peace and security of the state. So I think by inference, he said that it's the actions of the protesting youth that is compromising the peace and security of Kenya.
The large number of people that voted for you, William Ruto, as the MP for Eldoret North constituency, you know, and many of us know how you rose through the ranks. Everybody know your stature when it comes to issue of graft and what have you. You are a complete opposite of the things you are talking about today. So clearly, you inspired. Is it not the same William Ruto that in 2007 thereabout, that he and the, what do we call it, his immediate past boss, Kenyatta, were they not the people that the ICC invited for incited violence in such enormous proportion that a government of national unity has to be formed? That William Ruto is the one that today will not allow citizens of Kenya to express their revulsion against economic hardship that he promised that his president, that he was vice president, that the president was not for the people of Kenya, and that he will come and serve the people of Kenya, reduce taxes. You come and you want to increase taxes, then the people are simply reminding you that that is not what you promised us, and that is what you are talking about.
So you want the intervention of the African Union, that they shouldn't look on.
They shouldn't look on because Kenya probably has been one of the countries in Africa that has not suffered a military takeover since its independence. And if they allow this trend to continue, where government think that they can always use the police service to brutalize and to kill people, I can tell you that some of the members of the police service also have their own brothers, their blood, their sisters participating in this protest. It will turn out that in trying to shoot a gun, you end up shooting your own sister, and you go home to go and bury that sister. There, then you will get to know that you cannot continue to support a government that has become insensitive to the plight of its citizens.
Right. Let me just take you through. I asked one last question of Professor Gachi, and after that I can let him go. That why are the Kenyan youth protesting? And we know that from the finance bill that has now been approved, they say initial tax imposition on bread, cooking oil, others. So in Kenya, the new finance bill, of course, is imposing taxes on bread, cooking oil. Proposal to implement a 16% sales tax on bread, 25% duty on cooking oil. The alternative is you either produce it in your country, or what else do you do? Raising taxes on financial transactions. We have our own e-levy that has raised concerns as well. It's still raising concerns because the parameters or the thresholds that were given to us initially has now even transcended to others. Sometimes merchant same, sometimes also debited.
Yes.
A new annual vehicle ownership tax equivalent to 2.5% of the vehicle's value. So that's what the Ruto government decided to do. A 16% tax on goods and services used exclusively for constructing and equipping specialized hospitals with at least 50 beds. Increase of import taxes from 2.5% to 3% of the item's value payable by importers at the ports. Now, let's go to Kenya. The There's an inset because if you look at the Kenyan government aims to raise $2.7 billion in addition to taxes to reduce the budget deficit and state borrowing. The Kenya's public debt currently stands at 68% of GDP, not like ours. Ours is even higher than 55%, which ideally should have been the threshold. So we shouldn't ideally be moving out of 60, Ghana. Kenya is even just 68%, and there's trouble. Now, apparently our MPs were also caught up. Let's have that insert. It's just an MP's voice. I think we can all recognize the MP. So let's have where they're going through the tunnel first. Then we'll have Neil Antevanderpoel, and then we'll take an insert from Kenya. Then I'll go to Professor John Gachi.
Then we'll read what Tufero once said, that passing tax is better than his life. And he's there.
So you can't
We
drive
cannot listen.
out of the precincts of parliament. So they have to go and hide most of their cars and in the, what do you call it, the bunker under the main building, the administrative building. The speaker was...
Because the demonstrators are approaching. So they are evacuating the MPs to some underground tunnel. Because the demonstrators are approaching. Kenya.
I'm here because look at what's happening. Young Kenyans are demonstrating for their rights. They're demonstrating with flags and banners. I can't even see anymore. They're being tear gassed. They're being tear
They've bent down.
So they went to the parliament. They call it the Senate. La ilaha illallah. Now, just having a recourse to the voice behind that insert, I think he's the Sojaman member of parliament. Yeah. That's him. So he's one of 5 Ghanaian MPs who are there. They are from the local government committee. Of course, the ranking is Neil Antevanderpoel. And then we also have, is it Sylvester Tete? A member of parliament and a deputy minister. And then we also have... Tufero as well.
The one who said passing tax
yes.
is better than his life.
And then we have the chairman of the committee as well, who is also there. Now, Professor John Gachi, your last bite before you go. You take a look at the taxes, the tax handles that have been introduced in Kenya, for which we have even Barack Obama's sister, who is a member of parliament, also joining the protesters to protest. It means that even their case is even better than us. They are not even under restructuring bailout, so to speak. Is it going for a normal one from the Bretton Woods institutions? As an astute economist and somebody who leads one of the best business schools in Ghana, are you worried about what's happening in Kenya and looking at the current economic indicators in Ghana, worried for the standard of living for the ordinary Ghanaian? Professor John Gachi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm extremely worried because the reasons for the protests in Kenya perhaps are the same factors across most African countries, including Ghana. I will discuss the Kenyan situation from 2 perspectives.
Okay.
Cost of living crisis. That is the first one. Then, looking at it from the perspective of Abraham Maslow's
hierarchy of needs.
Yes. So what we are looking for the ordinary person from Abraham Maslow's perspective is shelter, food, and security. Look at all the items that taxes are going to be imposed on. These are the items that spell out, food, shelter, and security for the people of Kenya. Because of economic difficulty, we find reason to tax and make those things very expensive for the ordinary person. You come to Ghana, it's the same thing. Opportunities are not churned out from the economic management. In the case of Ghana, in Article 36(1), it is very clear the purpose of economic management is to deliver maximum happiness for the people and secured and sound jobs. We do not have that in Ghana. So I'm worried that signaling effect can take place, by which the young people of Ghana will be incentivized by what is happening in Kenya. So we need to be up. We need to confront the situation in a manner that is democratic, in a manner that is engaging, in a manner that actually defines hope for the people of Ghana, especially the young people.
As our conclusion discussion on this, you take like the items over the weekend. Of course, there's a video already there. Over the weekend, I went to buy a tube of yam. Was 40, 50. If you want a bigger one for the bigger family, you buy 50, a tube of yam.
Which means 100 tubers of yam.
Myself and my colleague were just talking about how sometimes we don't have public transportation that's adequate, comfortable. And so you have to use your car. So, for example, if you live beyond Tema, you have to go through a motorway, the roads are bad, etc. Of course, some roads have been done. But at the end of the day, these are the living or the standard of living conditions of ordinary people, which bears the argument that do you cut your expenditure or rather you increase taxes of the ordinary man?
First of all, you cut your expenditure. No two ways about it. If you stop flying private jets at £14,000 an hour, you stop renovating CEOs' houses with over 16 air conditions, the Maritime CEO. You stop a luxurious lifestyle, cutting e-levy cakes, living like kings. Definitely, you'll be able to save some funds. If you cut down the number of ministers, like President Mahama said you do, you save a lot of funds. Reckless expenditure, reckless spending, mismanagement of funds. Over $123 million paid to somebody who went to sink a hole in the name of a national cathedral. If you cut down on that, if you had stopped that reckless expenditure, you would have been able to save money. Doling out of funds to projects that have not even started. The Palugu project, $2 million doled out to a SkyTrain project. Not a single was done. If you save that and you cut down on corruption in your government, you'll be able to save a lot, to do a lot. The Kenyan situation is simply because of lies, it's simply because of incredibility, and it's simply because of lack of consistency in what Ruto told them. Absolutely, simply. Because if
is that replicated on the continent, in our country, the sub-region?
Oh, but clearly it's replicated in Ghana. We have a vice president who lies like what Ruto did. A vice president who lied in 2016 that he would do a lot of things, he's not done it. He still goes about today lying. So clearly, the people will get fed up, and if the people get fed up with your lies, they will definitely revolt. Look, e-levy, for example, that's virtually what they are doing there. They call it mobile money M-Pesa. So the tax on M-Pesa and the tax on financial transactions is going to be increased. Meanwhile, Ruto promised to reduce it upon assumption of office.
Actually, they are the originators of mobile.
Absolutely. They call it M-Pesa, M for money, mobile, M-Pesa for money. So, if you look at the systematic order to which Ruto deceived the people of Kenya, or the Kenyans, it is no different from what our vice president today is telling us in government. I will do this, meanwhile my government is in power. I have every opportunity to do this, I won't do it. Vote for me, when I come, I will do it. And you see, this should serve as a lesson to the people of this country. I will humbly plead to the Ghanaian people, whenever any presidential candidate comes to you, speaking to you, ask them viable questions, listen to them, scrutinize them, adjudge their policies,
Malik,
and
you.
take a major decision come December 7th. Roland, and if we take pragmatic steps in analyzing and critically scrutinizing all these parliamentary presidential candidates, we will not be where Kenya is today. Because if today the people of this country decide to revolve against this government, we have so many reasons to do more than what the Kenyans are doing on their streets today. But we pray that we never get there. Let me land on this point. With the MPs there, Roland, you see, sometimes, yes, I sympathize with many of the other MPs. And I wish that they never found themselves in such situations. But there's one MP, and if you permit me, Tuferu, the MP for Nantong, he was on his way to Parliament on the day e-levy was being passed. He had an accident. You and I sympathized with him here. We prayed for God to save his life and at least give him a chance moving forward. The MP for Nantong Tuferu had the guts to mount a podium and tell us, the Ghanaian people, that passing e-levy on us, passing taxes on us, imposing hardships and cruelty on Ghanaian people is better than his life. And if God had taken his life, even after passing these taxes and imposing hardships on Ghanaians, it would have been better for him. Let me tell the people of Kenya, Tuferu is in your country. He's one of the people who passed taxes on us. He says taxes are better than his life. Please, Kenyans, do justice. Find him.
What do you mean?
He's the MP for Nantong.
Sonny,
Help the Ghanaian people.
Sonny
treat him
says,
well.